Confused about how many calories you should be consuming to lose body fat, build muscle, or just for training performance in the gym? I've got you covered. In this video today, I'm going to break down how many calories and macros you should be consuming based on your specific goal. So step number one, we need to work out your calorie maintenance. Now, to get this number, we need to take your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you will burn at complete rest every day. We need to multiply it by your physical activity levels, your PAL, and that will give us our total daily energy expenditure, okay, your TDEE. Now, there's two options of how you can do this. Option number one is going online and using the Harris-Benedict equation. This is probably the most accurate. It'll take your height, your weight. You'll then tell it how active you think you are during the day. It will ask you to take into account how sedentary you think you are at work through your job, how active you think you are, plus how many times a week you gym, and it will give you a figure. It will then multiply them two together to come up with a rough calorie maintenance, okay? The other option is a much simpler version, which is actually the version that I use with most of my athletes, which is to take someone's body weight in pounds and multiply it by 15. If you know your weight in kilos, you need to get into pounds, you just multiply it by 2.2, okay? Because there are 2.2 pounds to a kilo. Again, it's not the most accurate, but it will put us in a ballpark. And the truth is, calorie maintenance will vary day to day, okay? Activity levels vary. One day you might go to the gym, the next day you might not. One day you might walk to the shops, the next day you might drive. So we're never gonna be exactly the same with our activity levels day by day. We just need a ballpark figure which is accurate enough for our starting point, and then we can work from there based on feedback to get real results as we go through this plan. Step number two is setting specific goals. There's three main ones. So fat loss, okay? We want to be able to preserve lean muscle tissue whilst dropping body fat. Muscle growth, okay? We want to gain lean muscle tissue but not put on excessive body fat. Or performance, okay? Are we just training to hit PRs in the gym and recover well, okay? Recover faster. Step number three, we need to adjust our calories based on our goals. So for fat loss, if the goal is fat loss, we need to take our total daily energy expenditure and subtract 250 to 500 calories per day. When we're losing weight, we don't really want to be losing more than 1 to 2 pounds a week. Anything more than that, we risk losing all that muscle that we've worked so hard to build up over the weeks and months before, okay? If you are vastly overweight, there is a case to say, obviously you can lose weight quicker and preserve muscle tissue, okay? But for the purposes of this, we are aiming to keep our deficit between 250 to 500 calories based on how aggressive we want to be. If you've got a short amount of time, you want to be hitting nearer to that 2 pounds, you'll be in a 500 calorie deficit. Obviously you'll be a bit tireder. You'll have less potential energy to use in the gym, so performance may suffer a little bit. My advice is starting around about 250 to 300 and then working back from there based on your feedback. Muscle growth. We take our total daily energy expenditure and we add 250 calories to it, okay? We only need to be in a slight surplus to build muscle, okay? That whole saying, eat big to get big, it's great, it's fun. We can eat a lot of food, but we're gonna put on so much excessive body fat that we then just have to get off at the end that actually we're wasting our time a little bit, okay? We're just making it harder at the end of the muscle building process to get back into shape. So what we would then do is just add 250, check the scale weight. If it's increasing, we're happy and it's not increasing too quickly, we will keep it there. If you're not putting weight on and we're not in a surplus, then you can bump it up a little bit, okay? But don't just eat whatever and hope for the best. If we're training for performance, it's easy. We just take our total daily energy expenditure and do nothing, okay? We just keep it as it is. We then see how our performance is going in the gym. You know, are our lifts going up? Are we happy? If so, keep it there. If we haven't quite got the energy we need for our workouts, then we may look to add some calories. If we're here and we're actually gaining weight too quickly and just putting on body fat, then we can remove it. But your starting point for performance will just be your rough calorie maintenance that we have worked out. Step number 4 is setting your macros. So again, there's 2 different options on how to do this. Option number 1 is designing your own based on figures that I'm going to give you here. So your protein intake for the day has to be between 1.7 to 3.2 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So if you're 100 kilos, you would need at least 170 grams of protein, going up to 320 grams. If you're on a cut, your protein should be a bit higher because you're probably lower in carbs and fat, and protein will then be used as a bit of energy. So because carbs are protein sparing and we don't have as many of those, we may need to bump protein up. If you're in a calorie surplus and you have plenty of carbs, plenty of fats, we can drop our protein a little bit lower because we know that we are going to be using that protein to build muscle and do all the things we want it to do. So fats, we need them to be 15 to 35% of total calories. We don't want to drop below 15%. Okay, we need essential fatty acids to break down vitamins, break down minerals. We need them to protect our organs. We need a healthy heart, hormone control. So for health reasons, we don't go below 15. I would say you never really need to go above 35%. This also varies on people on their preference of whether they like carbs or fats more. So for me, I generally start people around 25 to 30%. And then again, you can go from there. Carbs will be the remaining calories that you have left after you've worked out these two numbers. Okay, so once you've decided on your figures of how much of these you're using, you will then have a certain amount of calories left over. They will come from carbs. And at this point, it's worth noting that carbs are 4 calories per gram. Protein is also 4 calories per gram. And fat is a huge 9 calories per gram. Okay? That's why when you eat a small amount of food, which is really nice and tasty, but kind of junk food, it can be a little amount. Because of the fat content in there, it's a lot of calories. Whereas with carbohydrates, if you select a good source, because the calories per gram are lower, you can have more volume for less calories and keep yourself feeling fuller throughout the day. So again, I'm not going to go too much into that today. I'll do another video explaining, choice of macronutrients. But for today's purposes, for working out calories, it is worth remembering these numbers. The second option you have is working from percentages. So for physique athletes or for people who are weightlifting in the gym, generally the split that I would recommend would be getting 40% of your calories from carbs, 30% from protein and 30% from fat. So to do this, we would take however many calories we've decided on from here, find out 40%, and because carbs are 4 grams per calorie, we would then divide this number of calories by 4, and that would tell us how many grams we can have, okay? Same with protein, whatever 30% of the number is, divide it by 4, that will give you the grams. Fats, we take 30%, we then divide that by 9, and that will give us the grams. Round it up to the nearest whole number. When we're saying a diet at the beginning, we don't actually know what your body needs, okay? So a few little calories here and there when we're actually setting the numbers is fine, but once we've set them, we have something to work back from and use as our feedback. If you are new to nutrition, I would definitely recommend being here because it's the simplest. The one thing that you would want to check is protein. Really is a rough guide. You want to aim for 2 grams per kilo of body weight. It's just the simplest way to do it. You just need to make sure that this number here is at least 2 grams per kilo. As long as it is, you're fine. And to be perfectly honest, as long as protein is in the right place and you're not dropping below your 15% of fats, how you split carbs and fats is personal preference and your choice, okay? See how you're performing, see how you're doing. If your energy isn't there, you'll just need to up your carbohydrates a little bit. You do get energy from fats, but again, you'll have a play around with it and see which one you run off better and which one works for you. When we've decided on our calories and macros and where we're going to be in our starting point, we then need to just make sure that this plan is working for us, and we need to be adaptable based on feedback. So the feedback that we need is scale weight. So you'll need to weigh yourself at least weekly. I like to do it every day, just keeps me on track. Some people prefer twice a week, but at least weekly we need that feedback on the scales, because if we're trying to lose body fat and the scale weight is going up or staying the same, obviously some adjustments will need to be made. Same with if we're trying to build muscle, but our scale weight is going down. Potentially then we might need to increase the calories to be in a surplus. We also base muscle growth on lifts in the gym. So the other thing you'll need to track is your first 2-3 compound lifts of a session. Make sure you are achieving progressive overload. If you're not achieving progressive overload, that's the time that we need to adjust calories, okay? So for fat loss, scale weight along with performance in the gym is important, okay? Yes, if you're in a long cut, the chances are your weights will start to suffer, but we want to be trying to keep them at least where they are. At the beginning of a fat loss phase, we can still build a bit, but over time, as they come down, we want to make sure we are keeping them as strong as we possibly can. So we don't want to drop off in strength too quickly. With muscle gain, obviously, we want to see progressive overload and we want to see those numbers going up session by session. So again, if we're not able to achieve that based on the calories, it may be then that we need to adjust and put some more calories in. Performance-wise, again, we're basing it on feedback from our lifts and the scales. We're not so fussed about whether the weight is slightly going up or slightly going down. We potentially don't want too big a jump either way, but it's important to track your lifts and get on the scales. And it's really important to remember that macros are not static. As your body changes, your nutrition should too. The next step would be to track your calories. Okay, so we've got our nutrition plan worked out. We know how many calories we want to eat. We know whether we're going to be in a deficit, a surplus. We've decided on how our macros are going to be split. The next thing we need to do is make sure that these numbers are correct. So to do that, the best way is through some form of tracking, like a calorie counting app. That's going to be your best friend because it will do everything for you. Okay, you can do food packaging, but that's going to be time consuming. And there's loads of free calorie counting apps out there now. So lots of these apps, you can scan barcodes, it'll enter the food in. You can search, you can find the food. The way I actually like to do it is I will set my diet for the next day, the night before. So I'll go onto the app quickly. I'll type in what I want to have for lunch, breakfast, dinner, my couple of snacks or whatever it is. And then I know through looking at the macros that my split is correct and my calories are correct. If I deviate from it slightly, obviously I will have to then go into the app and change it. But generally speaking, once I've laid it out, I have a plan, I know what I'm doing, I will stick to that food, okay? It's a great way to stay consistent as well. We then need to decide how we're gonna split up the food throughout the day, so meal frequency. So for me, someone who needs around about 200 grams of protein, it's quite hard to get that in 3 hits, in 3 meals. So I like to have 3 meals plus a couple of snacks and I'll have protein at each one. I'll also spread my fats evenly throughout the day. It'll slow my digestion down, keep me feeling a bit fuller. And I will always try and make sure that I have carbohydrates before training and after training, so pre and post workout, okay? Pre-workout to make sure I have enough energy for my session. I wanna set myself up to succeed. Post-workout, I wanna replace the glycogen levels that I've burnt in my workout and get my body recovering nice and fast. You don't have to have carbs with every meal if you don't want to, but again, how you split your food through the day is important because you need to make sure you can fit it all in. So if you're someone who trains early in the morning, you get up early, you train fasted and you can handle that, that's great, do that if that works for you. My advice though, the way I like to do it is carbs pre and post workout, protein split throughout the day, fats again evenly distributed throughout my meals. Now remember, keep it simple, be consistent and adjust this nutrition plan based on real results and real life feedback. If you found this video helpful, then hit like and comment below what your goal is and what your current macros are.